My parents and sister told me you're not family until you earn it. Do the chores and sleep in the shed. Then my sister slammed the door and left. 4 days later, she heard singing coming from the backyard. Why are they filming her? My mother peered through the curtains. I, 32F, was never treated like family. My parents said love wasn't a given, it had to be earned. My sister, Talia, 35F, was the golden child, while I was told to do chores, stay quiet, and eventually, sleep in a moldy shed behind the house. No privacy, no bed, no basic dignity. When I started posting my art online, it caught the attention of a filmmaker. He filmed a segment on me right there in the backyard. Days later, my sister was asking, why are they filming her? While my mother was peeking through the curtains. Now they want to talk, but only because the world is watching. I'm not sure what to do. We were sitting in the living room after dinner. The usual dead silence stretched out while my parents watched local news and my sister scrolled on her phone. I had cleared the table, done the dishes, and was already dreading the cold night in the shed. That was when Talia looked up with a smirk. You know, she said, barely glancing at me, you're not really family yet. You've still got a lot to prove. My mom chimed in without emotion. Do the chores. Stay humble. You can come inside when we see a change. I didn't say anything. I had heard it all before. Every time I thought maybe, just maybe, I was becoming someone they could love, something like this reminded me that I was just an obligation to them. That night, like all the others, I walked through the backyard with a flashlight, stepping around the cracked paving stones to get to the shed. It was a storage space, really. Half collapsed on one side, with a rotting roof patched with plastic sheeting. Inside, I had a pile of couch cushions for a bed, a sleeping bag, and a battery-powered lantern. It was better than the first few nights, when I had nothing but a blanket and a damp floor. I didn't always live in a shed. Growing up, I had a bedroom like Talia. But the favoritism was always there, subtle at first. She got the new clothes while I wore hand-me-downs. She got piano lessons, I read library books and taught myself to draw. At first, I assumed that's just how things worked, older kids got more attention. But as I got older, it became obvious that it wasn't just that. It was me. Or rather, something about me. Maybe I wasn't what they wanted in a second daughter. I was quiet. Shy. I liked animals, not pageants. I didn't make them proud at school assemblies or bring home trophies. And my father had a firm belief that children existed to reflect the family's pride. If you want to be part of this family, he told me when I was 14, then act like someone we can be proud of. Talia, on the other hand, couldn't do wrong. She could crash her car, skip school, lie to teachers, it didn't matter. My parents always spun it as, she's just expressing herself. When I graduated high school and started working 2 part-time jobs, they said I was aimless. When I tried to save up for college, they called me wasteful. When I spent late nights drawing and designing digital art, they mocked it. So now you think you're Picasso? My dad sneered once. Eventually, the bedroom I used to call mine became Talia's second closet. That's when the shed became mine. I never stopped working. Ever. I woke up at 5 a.m., took the bus to the bakery, served sour-faced customers until noon, then walked to the thrift store for my second shift. I saved money where I could can soup, Goodwill clothes, bus passes instead of Uber. And all the while, I kept painting. Digitally, traditionally, everything. I uploaded time-lapses and short sketches online at night using my old Android. I had a cheap tripod from a garage sale. My studio was a folding table behind the shed where no one could see me. The account started slow, 10 views, 20 views, a few followers. But I kept posting. I told myself I'd make something out of this. That if I just kept showing up, someone would eventually see me. Then one video, a silent speed paint of a girl trapped in a glass jar while her family smiled outside, went mini viral. Not millions, but a couple thousand comments. A few people said it hit them hard. Someone messaged me and said, I feel like I am this girl. That was the moment I realized I wasn't invisible anymore. A local content creator named Mason found my work on TikTok. He messaged me saying he loved my art and wanted to feature me on his Hidden Creators of Appalachia series. He had about 100,000 subscribers. It wasn't CNN, but it was real. I agreed. I didn't tell anyone in the house. On the day of filming, I woke up early, cleaned the table, set up my paints, and brushed the leaves off the dirt patch beside the shed. When Mason and his cameraman arrived, we chatted quietly. I told my story, what I was comfortable sharing. That I lived in a shed, painted to stay sane, and used art to cope with emotional neglect. I never said names. I didn't even mention the town. But they caught it anyway. My mom saw them first through the back window. She must have thought they were strangers trespassing because I heard the door creak open, and then slam shut again. I could hear the click of the blinds lifting in the living room. Then Talia's voice, sharp and stunned. Why are they filming her? The filming didn't take long, an hour, maybe less. Mason had a drone that captured footage of the backyard and shed. He said it added texture. I wasn't sure what that meant, but I nodded. Before leaving, he shook my hand and said, I think people are really going to connect with this. They did. Within 24 hours, the video had over 400,000 views. Within 48 hours, it was at 1.3 million. The comments poured in, someone help this girl. I grew up just like this. She's so talented it hurts. I watched it all from the shed, phone glowing in my lap while my parents and sister kept pretending I didn't exist. But I knew they were watching. I saw Talia through the blinds that night, pacing. I heard my mom on the phone in the hallway. My dad was unusually silent. Normally he barked orders at me through the screen door. But now? Nothing. Then came the knock. I opened the shed door and saw him standing there holding a box of clothes and notebooks I'd left in the house years ago. I think it's time you took your things and found your own place, he said. It wasn't an offer. It was a dismissal wrapped in politeness. But I smiled, genuinely. Good idea, I said. I was gone in 2 days. I had messages from 3 artists offering mentorship. One gallery owner in Atlanta even offered me a temporary room over her studio. I took her up on it. I packed my paints, my clothes, and my camera gear. Talia texted me a week later, we should talk. You didn't have to make us look like monsters. I didn't respond. I left quietly, which seemed to annoy them even more. There was no dramatic confrontation. No shouting. Just me, shoving my clothes and supplies into a couple of old duffel bags while my mom hovered near the doorway like she wanted to say something but couldn't figure out how to phrase it without making herself the victim. I could feel her eyes on my back the entire time. You've always been so dramatic, she muttered eventually, when I passed her in the hallway. All of this just because you didn't want to help around the house. I didn't look at her. I just kept walking. They never understood and maybe never will that it wasn't about the chores. I cleaned the entire house more times than I could count. I cooked, I raked leaves, I even took care of my dad when he threw out his back one winter. It was never enough. It was never seen. That's what hurt the most. When I left, no one offered to drive me. I took a Greyhound bus to Atlanta with my bags on my lap and my sketchbook wedged between my knees. Yvette, the gallery owner, greeted me at the station with a warm smile and a long hug that startled me. I hadn't been hugged in years, not genuinely. Her studio was a narrow brick building nestled between a yoga co-op and a vegan cafe, with tall windows and the scent of linseed oil floating through the air. Upstairs was a tiny apartment with a kitchenette and a twin bed, a space heater humming in the corner. It's not fancy, she said, but it's yours. And that word yours made my throat tighten. For the first week, I couldn't sleep properly. I kept waiting for the shed door to creak open, for someone to yell at me for being lazy, for the buzz of my phone with another passive-aggressive message from Talia. But nothing came. Instead, I painted. I filled canvas after canvas, sometimes 4 or 5 a week. Yvette gave me space, but she also gave me direction. She showed me how to price my work, how to photograph it for online sales, how to write a bio that didn't sound like I was apologizing for being alive. She also introduced me to other artists. Real people. Kind people. One of them, an older woman named Arcelia, told me something that stuck with me. You know, she said, sipping tea from a chipped mug, you don't have to carry their silence like it's yours. I didn't respond right away. But I thought about it every day after. 2 months after the video went live, I got an invitation to speak at a small art and healing panel in Nashville. I hesitated at first. It felt too close to home. But something inside me, a spark, maybe said go. When I arrived, the trees were bare and the air sharp with the early bite of winter. The venue was a renovated barn turned into a community center. Warm lights strung across the rafters, folding chairs in tight rows, and maybe 30 people waiting with open eyes. I told my story, not the full version, not the shed part, but enough. About being dismissed, unseen, and how art became the one place I could speak without interruption. When the panel ended, a woman my mother's age came up to me crying. I never knew how to help my daughter, she said. She was always quiet like you. I think I owe her an apology. That moment did something to me. It made the ache in my chest feel useful. But not everything stayed so inspiring. Because not long after that panel, I saw Talia again. It happened by accident. I was at a small coffee shop in downtown Asheville, the Green Bean, I think it was called. I had stopped in for a hot drink and to sketch for an hour before heading back to the bus. I didn't even notice her at first. She approached my table like she was walking on eggshells. Noelle? I looked up. She looked thinner. Not sick, just worn down. Her makeup wasn't perfect. Her hair wasn't curled. She looked real for the first time. I didn't know you were back in town, she said. I said nothing. I just waited. I saw your panel, she continued. On YouTube. Mom sent it to me. I blinked. I didn't name any of you. I know, she said quickly. But everyone at church figured it out. They keep asking questions. And Mom, she's taking it hard. There it was. Not how are you, not I'm sorry. Just concern about what people thought. I didn't do it to hurt you, I said finally. I did it because it was the only way I knew how to survive. She sat down across from me, uninvited. I should have told her to leave. But part of me wanted to know why. Why all the cruelty? Why the games? You made everything about you, she said, voice trembling. Always so quiet. Always so sad. You guzzled the life out of every room. I stared at her. Then I laughed. Not a kind laugh. A dry, tired one. I guzzled the life out? Talia, you laughed when they made me sleep in a shed. Her face went red. It wasn't like that. No? I leaned forward. Then how was it? She opened her mouth. Closed it again. I don't know, she whispered. I thought it would make you stronger. That's what Dad always said. And did it? I don't know. I stood up. You don't have to know. But I do. And I'm done living under a roof that only shelters the worthy. I walked out before she could say anything else. Back at the gallery, I told Yvette what happened. She didn't say much. Just handed me a brush and a fresh canvas. Paint it out, she said. So I did. A girl standing alone, wind whipping her hair around her face, hands open, chest forward, eyes closed but smiling. Not waiting for approval. Just existing. Fully. I didn't hear from Talia for weeks after that. And to be honest, I was relieved. The last thing I wanted was another round of conversations that felt more like emotional scavenger hunts, where I had to dig through broken memories just to find a single ounce of sincerity. I buried myself in work there were commissions to fulfill, art to ship out, and now, emails from actual galleries in Nashville and even one in Portland. Apparently, Mason's video was still making rounds. People were still watching. Still commenting. Still connecting. Yvette and I set up a small show, my first ever in the front gallery space. She called it Unframed, which I loved. It was meant to reflect the messiness of the stories behind the pieces. I stood in a black turtleneck and the same beat-up jeans I wore while painting, too nervous to smile, trying to accept compliments without shrinking into myself. But the biggest surprise came 3 weeks after the show. I got a letter. A real one. Not an email. Not a DM. It had no return address, but I knew the handwriting. My mother's. I almost didn't open it. I let it sit on the counter for 3 days. Every time I looked at it, my stomach tightened. I told myself I was over it, that I didn't need whatever was inside, but curiosity has a way of scratching at you. So I opened it. It was 5 paragraphs. Neatly written. Not cold, but not warm either. The kind of tone she used when writing grocery lists or signing Christmas cards. She didn't say sorry. Not exactly. She said she didn't understand the impact her choices had made. She said she thought she was pushing me to be independent. That she assumed I was stronger than I let on. And she ended the letter by saying, "I hope you can see that we raised you with discipline, not cruelty. And I hope you find peace in your heart, wherever life takes you." I reread it twice. Then I folded it up and put it in the drawer by my bed. I didn't cry. I didn't get angry either. I just felt tired. Because even now, after everything, they were still trying to control the narrative. Still trying to frame my pain as a result of their intentions, not their actions. And the real kicker? 3 days later, Talia posted on Facebook about how proud she was of me. A long post, full of glossy words and faux sisterly love. "She's always been so talented," it read. "So glad the world is finally seeing what I've known all along." I hadn't spoken to her since the coffee shop. It got shared over 200 times. Her church friends commented with hearts and prayer hands. One even called us an inspiration. I didn't reply. I didn't share it. But people from our hometown began reaching out anyway. Old classmates, neighbors, even a girl I barely remembered from 3rd grade sent a message saying, "I always thought something seemed off at your house. I'm glad you're doing okay now." That message hit differently. It reminded me of how long I'd been holding my breath in that house, how long I thought silence was safety. But not all the attention felt good. Suddenly, people expected me to speak up about family trauma like I was some sort of expert. Others sent long, heartbreaking messages asking for advice. And while I wanted to respond to every single one, it became overwhelming. I started sleeping less. Painting less. I started questioning whether I was even allowed to enjoy the small victories. Because in the back of my head, that old voice came creeping back, "And you didn't earn this. You just got lucky." Yvette noticed it before I said anything. One afternoon she walked into the studio and gently pulled the brush from my hand. "You're burning out," she said. I nodded, because I couldn't argue. "Take a break," she said. "Not forever. Just a little while. Go somewhere that isn't about proving anything." So I did something I hadn't done since I was 15. I went back to the woods behind our old property. Not the house god, no. But the woods that started just past the fence line behind the shed. The place I used to escape to when I needed to feel like the world was bigger than just 4 walls and cold stairs. I drove up, parked a few blocks away, and walked the back trail. The trees were taller than I remembered. Or maybe I was just taller now. The stream still trickled near the bend where the dogwood tree grew. I sat down on the same mossy rock I used to call my thinking spot, and just breathed. I didn't bring my phone. I didn't bring my sketchbook. I just sat there. And for the first time in a long time, I wasn't Noelle the viral artist or Noelle the survivor or Noelle the girl in the shed. I was just a person. Sitting. Listening. Existing. When I finally got up to leave, I caught a glimpse of the house through the trees. The roof was still in disrepair. The backyard fence was leaning, broken in some places. The shed was still there. But it looked smaller. Much smaller than I remembered. Like a stage that no longer had power over the actors who once performed on it. I didn't go back to that house. Not even to knock on the door or let them know I'd been nearby. I figured they probably saw me through the window and watched like they always had from behind curtains, always monitoring, never connecting. But I didn't care anymore. I wasn't theirs to monitor. That short visit to the woods did something to me. It reminded me that I'd survived in spite of them, not because of them. And if I could find peace in that patch of forest, I could find it anywhere. Back in Atlanta, I picked up the paintbrush again. Not out of obligation, not because I needed to prove anything, but because I wanted to. The burnout faded. My colors came back literally and metaphorically. And with them, something else came, clarity. Yvette helped me set up a full solo exhibition for the spring. This time, it wasn't just a few paintings on one wall. It was an entire gallery space dedicated to a body of work I'd been building quietly, pieces that told my whole story. Each one was titled with a phrase my family had said to me, but twisted reclaimed. There was a painting of the shed, soft-lit and glowing like a lantern, titled Not My Home. Another, with a ghost-like figure holding up an invisible weight, was titled Earn It? No, thanks. And the centerpiece, the one that made people stop and stare and sometimes cry, was a portrait of a faceless girl standing in the middle of a storm, her hair swirling, her posture defiant, her hand raised as if to say enough. That one was titled The Family Didn't Break Me. They made me visible. People lined up on opening night. I stood off to the side, uncomfortable with the attention but grateful all the same. By the end of the evening, more than half the collection had sold. I saw real emotion in people's eyes, not pity, not shock, but resonance. I was no longer just a story. I was a mirror. And then came the final piece of this long, strange journey. 6 months after the exhibition, I was invited to be a guest speaker at a community art conference in Asheville. They wanted me to host a workshop for young creatives from under-resourced or difficult family backgrounds. At first, I hesitated. Returning in that way felt too close to the past. But after a long talk with Yvette and a few sleepless nights, I said yes. I booked a hotel. I brought a portfolio. I told myself, you're going back as the teacher now, not the student. That's different. The workshop was held at a local art center just 15 minutes from where I'd grown up. And on the second day, something strange happened. Talia showed up. She wasn't on the list. She didn't sign in. But there she was, standing at the back of the room in a blazer like she belonged there. I kept my composure and continued with my demonstration, teaching students how to paint narrative portraits using layered textures, but I clocked her the whole time. When it ended, she approached me while the students cleaned up their stations. "You've really made a name for yourself," she said, forcing a smile. "I made a life for myself," I replied. She nodded, as if trying to find her place in a conversation that didn't need her. Then she said it. "Mom and Dad are, well, they're feeling pretty humiliated. Everyone keeps bringing up the video. The paintings. The story." I shrugged. "That's not my problem. They were just trying to raise us tough. That was their way." "Toughness doesn't excuse cruelty," I said calmly. "And they didn't raise us. They raised you." "I raised me." She shifted, uncomfortable. "Well, they want to make things right. You know, maybe we could do a family interview. Like a redemption story. Let people see we've grown." I blinked. There it was. The real reason she was here. "It would help you too," she added, too quickly. "Close the loop. Get ahead of the narrative. And, well, I could use the visibility. I've been working on some writing. Memoir-type stuff. You know, your side, my side, both valid." It was almost laughable. I looked her dead in the eye. Talia, I said, you don't get to profit off the apology you never made. She flinched. Then, without waiting for a response, I turned and walked away. That night, I did something small but deliberate. I posted a new video to my art channel, a slow, wordless montage of me painting a small canvas with just one sentence on it. You never owed them silence. No names. No specifics. But those who needed it understood. It went viral within 2 days. A major publishing house reached out. They wanted a collection, art and essays. A story of survival without sensationalism. A quiet, strong revenge, success without permission. I signed the deal. The book is due out next year. And my family? They're still watching. I know they are. I see the occasional anonymous comment trying to cast doubt or shift the blame. But I don't answer. I don't need to. Because the most satisfying revenge isn't shouting over your past. It's walking into your future and not inviting your past along.